Welcome to WitchLab Wednesday Live. I'm your host, Tiffany Boggins, and today is December 14th, 2022. Thank you all for joining me. Tonight, we're going to be talking with Judika and Kathryn Sky-Peck about the new Wiser Tarot. It's going to be very exciting. You guys know how much I love tarot talk. So we're going to have them on in just a minute. Let's see. What's news? I want to thank Estrella Taylor and Jason Mankey for being here at WitchLab for this whole past weekend and up in Cleveland too at the Buckland Museum. It was wonderful to have you. You guys are amazing. We had so much fun. They are so much fun and informative. I learned lots of cool things. And I loved they did a Saturnalia ritual. Fantastic. Oh, I love you both so much. Thank you for coming. And their new book is Modern Witchcraft with the Greek Gods, and is actually sold out on Amazon already. But fear not, WitchLab has you covered. We have them. You can order them from us, witchlab.com. If you want to hear about them talk about the book, you can see last weekend's live broadcast. So let's see. What else? This is a kind of a strange request. So a friend of mine, she reached out to me. They work for Nationwide Children's Hospital, and they're on the board for the employee relations. Hold on one second. Let me just make sure everything is technically good. Okay. Yes. Okay. Hi guys. It's good to see you. But yeah, I want to get back to this. It's kind of an important thing. Okay. So yeah, they are on the board for employee relations group for the LGBTQIA group called All Equal. And they are looking for a speaker. They're looking for someone who could come talk to them about the LGBTQIA experience in the world of witchcraft. And, I don't really know much more details about it than that. But if you're interested or you know somebody who's interested, they can just email me and I will forward their information to my friend. It's witchlabinfo@gmail.com, which I will just put in here real quick just so you guys have it. Yeah. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know any more details about it, but it sounds like a really good opportunity. Representation, information, these things are important. The holidays are upon us. That's right. And I won't tell you how many days are left because every time someone tells me, I have a small panic attack. So, but, if you're looking for ideas, we have things. We've got calendars, all your favorites. Tea, right? The stuff that we make in shop, calm the fuck down. Always a good one. Third eye, feeling good as hell. Spring tea, if you want to avoid the fact that you're in December, or lean into the cold and get some hibernation tea. Little incense, a little skull tea strainer. It's a sweet little gift basket for somebody. We also have lots of taxidermy, skulls, bones, unique antiques, witchy decor. Who doesn't want a Ouija board doormat, right? Like, those are awesome. People would love that. And then there's jewelry, so much jewelry. But yeah, there's so much other things. We'll get into later one too. But yeah. Oh, more shameless promotion stuff. What's upcoming? So we've got the WitchLab Book Club. Always free to join, always free to be a part of. Cultum Librorum, usually on the last Sundays of the month, although I imagine they'll change that because the last Sunday of this month is the 25th. But you can join the group by going to the Facebook page, and I will give you that link right now. Make sure you answer the questions so they can approve your thing. So you're not a bot. But they have not chosen the book for next month. So if you join in time, you get a say. So, and the book clubs are great. The meetings are great. Sometimes the authors show up. It's really fun. Okay. This Saturday, December 17th, Arts Coven will be hosting a Yule ritual in the new event space. The WitchLab new event space. It's very exciting. It's a big deal. But to learn about Arts Coven and what they offer or to buy tickets, you can go to the event, which is on the WitchLab Facebook page, and see what they do. Because it's not just a thing. It's not just a ritual that you're paying for when you do it. It's actually an entire coven teaching system that Maggie Caldwell does, who studied with Evo Dominguez. It's very good. It's legit. And this Yule ritual is a part of it. So I would suggest you check it out. Tarot Tea Party is on holiday break still. They're coming back in January. It's usually the It most likely will be third Thursday of January, and it's going to be the Fool for the beginning of the year. So Libby will be back, and we're going in the new event space for that too, which means you can get in. Because I know there's been a lot of sold out classes and people were upset. Not anymore, folks. I got you. WitchLab Wednesday Live upcoming shows. December 28th is our holiday special with Mortellus. It's become a little bit of a tradition, and maybe some other special guests. I don't know. We'll see. And January 18th, Shiva Honey will be back. She is the wonderful woman from the Satanic Temple, and she's going to talk about her newest book, The Devil's Death, as well as her new music project, which I'm going to grill her all about, which is very exciting. And speaking of guests, let's say some highs. Let's say some highs. I'm completely steamrolled over all of you. Christy, Christina, Donna, Betty, Joe, Tara, my lovely Tara. Hey guys, it's good to see you all. Thanks for being here with us. We have very interesting topics coming up because, again, tarot. I love it. Okay, so little drum rolls. We're going to get our people out here. Our first guest is a lifelong student of the esoteric arts, currently the creative director at Red Wheel Weiser. She is also an award-winning poet, fine artist, and a modern dancer. She has been the sole proprietor of Sky-Peck Design for the last 27 years, boasting clients such as the Witch's Almanac and Ibis Press. She has worked with some of the biggest names in occult authors, right? And she also has a kid named Milo. Allow me to introduce Kathryn Sky-Peck. Hello, Kathryn.
Good evening. Hi.
Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're excited. This is going to be great. And now I'm going to introduce our other guest, because that's right, folks. We have two guests tonight. And you are all very familiar with her because she's become a regular here on WitchLab Wednesday Live. She is an independent scholar, educator, and author of several books, including, as you all know, my favorite, The Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells, Encyclopedia of Spirits, The Weiser Field Guide to Witches, Pure Magic, Magic When You Need It, which is an amazing book. Seriously, I've pulled it off the shelf so many times. And not only a graduate of Rutgers University, but also has a certification in therapeutic aromatherapy from the Australasian College of Herbal Studies. I may have killed that word. She's also a tarot reader and, of course, one of our favorite witches, folks, the legendary Judika Illis. Yay! Now it's a party. That's right.
I wish.
We're going to make it a party. This is our party. Next time I'll get spinning lights for back here. And I'll send them to you ahead of time, so we'll all... So yeah, welcome. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for being on the show. And thank you for doing this. This is amazing. The new, well, let me get out of there. The new Weiser Tarot. So first, let's get to know each other a little bit. Kathryn, where are you from?
Born in Los Angeles, grew up in Chicago. I've been living in Boston since 1978.
So you just migrated east.
Migrated. Yep. And oddly, my daughter migrated west. So there's a pattern.
Going to find her roots, like
I don't know
where you came from. And Judika, still in New York, yes?
I took the opposite direction from Kathryn. I was born in New York City, moved out to Los Angeles, lived there for 11 years, and came back to the East Coast. So yeah, I'm back here now. But I do miss the sunny weather.
We've been talking about a trip to LA recently, and I've never been.
So. Oh, you should go.
Yeah. You both suggest it, yeah?
I love it. I did not leave Los Angeles willingly. Life sent me. If it wasn't for me, I would still be there.
Back to New York?
I would still be in LA. I like that.
No, I mean, but life sent you.
Yeah.
They're like,
the
no.
arrows pointed east, and I had no choice.
So, how? I don't know if I know how long you've been the creative director of Weiser, Kathryn.
So, I started at Weiser Publishing in 1981. back when Donald Weiser was running the company with his wife, the renowned astrologer Betty Lundstedt. And I stayed there for a goodly amount of time. I then moved on to the Museum of Fine Arts and was developing books for them. From there, I moved on to Tuttle and met the current owner of Red Rule Weiser Books, Michael Kerber. And a few years ago, for various and sundry reasons, I came back on staff. I think it was 2016. I came back on staff at Red Wheel. I was packaging for them anyway, and mostly doing their work. And I just took on a larger role, overseeing the creative direction. I do some acquiring. I have a few authors that I've pulled in, but mostly my thing is art and art
Kathryn has all
direction.
the book covers.
Book covers.
If you have seen a Weiser book cover and you have loved it, Kathryn did it.
Really? Excellent. So what are some of the ones that I would recognize, what I would know?
Mine. They're magic.
I do love that cover. I adore that cover.
To have it sitting here, but pretty much everything. I mean, we have some amazing books coming out in just a little while. Rachel Pollack's new one, A Walk Through the Forest of Souls. We have Carol Crow's The Magic in Your Genes, The Evil Eye, Spirit Voices. I mean, those are the ones I'm working on, Kathryn. I mean, there are others also.
So,
But,
Kathryn,
it's very varied. I mean, I can go from Rachel Pollack to American Brujeria. It just so
Also,
I do enjoy the range.
That and so you specifically design those.
Yes, and I do work with some outside designers as well.
They're gorgeous. They're gorgeous. I love the direction that Weiser has been taking with covers, and I've noticed it. And I had no idea that was you.
Thank you so much.
You know, it's funny because I went into this interview going, I'm not going to do much research. I'm literally going to find out as we go, and I am blown away.
Well, it's funny because Kathryn always says, oh, they won't know me. They'll know you, and they won't know me. But it's not really true because people know the covers.
We just don't know.
I'm the silent person behind it all. So yeah.
Well, I thank you for all that you do back there because a lot of great work has come out, and I feel like this resurgence has brought a lot of new art, new ideas, new things to us, and it's definitely not stale, right? Like there's so much
new young people, new energy, new ideas. There's been a real resurgence in the occult with this generation now, and it's very exciting.
It is. Judika, how long have you been with Weiser again?
2015. I also have a long time history with Weiser, although in a different way.
That's right.
Because when I may have told you this before, but my sister is 12 years older than me. And when I was starting PS 19 in Queens as a first grader, my sister was starting at college at Cooper Union, which at that time, which is, in the East Village in Manhattan, and which at that time was around the corner from the old Weiser bookshop. And she would always, on her way home, would bring stuff home, books or stuff. And one day she brought home from the Weiser shop, the Samuel Weiser shop, a deck of tarot cards. And it was love at first sight for me. And she, I essentially stole them from her. It's not the Rider-Waite-Smith, it was the BOTA. But, in some ways, my career as a professional card reader starts with Weiser. And then
like a theft.
Yeah, then I did. When I had 2 books that went out of print, and then I brought them to Weiser. So first I was a published author at Weiser, and so that's about, I don't even know, 2005, no, maybe 2008. I don't know when Pure Magic first came out. And And then in 2000, and I was always joking with my editor at that time, Amber Goutebier, would always give me books to endorse. And I would always catch errors in the manuscripts, not grammatical errors, but contextual errors. And I kept telling her, well, you should hire me, because if you hired me, you wouldn't have these errors. And then in 2015, they did.
So Judika is not only an amazing editor, but she does so much of the acquisitions in the Wiser line, and her contacts, her ability, her knowledge, she's just, you know,
we like each other.
I've worked with her for a while. I just think that she has amazing insight and instincts. So, you can't design something unless you have a fabulous something to design.
It's really
fabulous somethings.
But it's really a privilege. We really work with some of the most amazing,
absolutely,
people in the metaphysical and occult world. It's really a blessing.
The amount of authors who I have interviewed that have told me that they did it because Judika Illes told them to.
I believe that.
Jason Miller was one. He's like, when Judika Illes tells you to write a book, you write a fucking book.
Well, because I can see them. I mean, that's how I write. When the first book I ever wrote, which remains unpublished, I could see it in my head. And it was a book I wanted to buy for myself. And I went out looking for, I went to bookstores looking for this book until I realized it didn't exist. So I thought I better write it. And when people talk to me, sometimes I can see a book. You should write this. This is a book. And, once you can do that, you can write it.
Rob Abbott actually says, literally gave me the best advice that changed my life.
Oh, thank you,
Real
Rob.
deal.
I'm happy to see you.
Yeah, it's what you do. What you once told me that you were a book midwife.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite lines of all time.
Yeah, you get to help books be born,
and I love that.
Yeah.
So let's get into the Wiser Tarot. How did this come about? First, let's talk about the difference. Like, what's the difference? Like, when we see this as opposed to the Rider-Waite, what's the difference?
I think it's easier to start by talking about how it came about, because what's different about it was born out of that sort of genesis of idea.
Love it.
So, Judika, do you mind if I sort of?
No, I think I was about to suggest. No, you should start. So, because with tarot, you always start with the visual.
Yeah. So I had this thing in my head, and there were sort of a confluence of events. One was the 65th anniversary of Wiser Books. Another was the 70th anniversary of Pamela Coleman Smith's death. Donald Wiser had passed away in those years when we were first thinking of this idea. And very shortly thereafter, Stuart Kaplan passed away, who was the publisher and president of US Games. And if you have a tarot deck, it's probably from US Games. So it was sort of, how do we do something to commemorate these events? And it just sort of started out as that type of idea. And I came upon, well, what if we did the Wiser Tarot? And the reason it was the Rider-Waite Smith that we focused on and not something else, or not creating something new, is because Donald Wiser started out, before he was a full-blown publisher, he was a bookseller with his father, Samuel, on the Lower East Side, as Judika has mentioned. And they sold rare, out of print, esoteric books. And people would come in and they'd pick up something that had been published in England in 1890, early 1900s, and was, out of print. And there was a demand. People, do you have another one? And so Donald started republishing, reprinting books that were in the public domain. One of those books was The Pictorial Key to the Tarot by A.E. Waite. And it was a significant republication. And at around that same time, which would have been the early 70s, Donald and Stuart Kaplan were very good friends, very close. And Donald was like, well, we're going to do the book. Why don't you see if you can get the rights to the cards?
Mm-hmm.
Which of course Stuart did. And, the rest is really history. Probably, Stuart and US Games made it the best-selling deck.
Absolutely.
Ever. So it was really an homage to both of them and their legacy. And for me, very specifically, I needed it to be a legacy to Pamela Coleman Smith because I was familiar with her artwork before she was the creator of the tarot. And her artwork, she went to Pratt, she was a New Yorker. Her artwork, and I don't know if you've seen any of it, that's non-tarot artwork, was bold and beautiful and bright and full of movement and very gouache and watercolor. And it just had a real life to it. And I always sort of wondered, what would the 1909 Rider-Waite have looked like with better printing technology? I don't know what the original artwork looked like. It's gone. Right. We don't know what the printing plates looked like. They were destroyed in the war. So there was this kind of big sort of question mark in my head of like, what if, And I wanted to approach the deck not to riff off of it, but to dive into it with the thought of what would she have brought to it in terms of her own style and her own art. And that's sort of the story behind how it started and where it went.
The lines are the same, right. Because the lines of the images, like we removed the color, brought it down to the bones. We didn't change any of the art.
Okay.
But then replace the color. And I don't know, maybe a little bit of, because of the watercolor and the way the colors bleed over a little bit, I think maybe that was it. I mean, I like that change. And
I wanted to give it more of a hand, leave the residue of doing it by hand. Because when she painted the cards, I mean, she started with, black ink line work. That was her beginning. And then the cards were painted. And when you do take it down to the bones, as Judika has mentioned, you can see things that kind of get obscured when you have all the color on top of it, because there's an amazing amount of non-specific gender. There's a lot of open possibility in the cards that you really can only see at that very simple line work level. And I wanted to also follow that path and see where it led.
And we're not the first to change the color. And in fact, if you just buy a regular Rider-Waite Smith, depending on the edition you buy, really good tarot scholars can identify the year it was printed and who printed it by looking at the colors of the deck. Some of them are brighter or harsher or gentler. And then there are also other editions like the Albano-Waite and the Universal-Waite, where they also played with the color. And I think one of the things is when you play with the color, you just see different things. And we wanted people to see it fresh and to appreciate Pamela Coleman Smith.
Yeah, we didn't want to just take the colors that were there and make them bolder, brighter, whatever, as a repaint. We really wanted to dive into it in an inward journey sort of way. We didn't want to go away from it. We wanted to go deeper into it. and see what we could discover. And a lot of the painting of it just ended up being very intuitive. It's not like we had a chart of, well, we're going to use these colors here and those colors there, and this has to be this and that has to be that. It just became a very intuitive process.
I do think it looks a little stained glassy, doesn't it? Like, especially like I'm looking at that card right now, the sense of the light coming through. It's really beautiful.
I'm fascinated to hear that I did something. I'm fascinated to hear that you took it down to the lines and then sort of started from there. And thinking about it that way, and talking about, a little more androgynous type stuff, I can see what you're talking about. Like, especially with the Lover's card, there's hints of things. If you look at just the lines, it's
sure,
dude might have little boobs, right? Like there's something there that's like, maybe it's not as rigid as we thought.
Or even like the Nine of Swords, this figure sits up in bed.
Uh-huh.
And it's like something has awakened him or her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no focus there on the gender of it. It's just on the energy of that moment. And
I love that.
That's what we wanted to get back to.
So these were hand painted then, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
This is fantastic. I did not know that. Looking at the deck, I had no idea. I just wanted to read a comment real quick. Sonia says, to me, you just described a beautiful feminine resurrection story, which I love.
Thank you.
That's a lovely line.
It is. It is. Sonia is one of our local artists here. She's amazing. She's had shows at WitchLab and she's fantastic. This is another stained glassy one.
My favorite.
Oh, I love that card.
It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. That's
my favorite.
One of the decisions that you made, and I really applaud it, is the color. Each suit has a continuous background color. The swords are all purple, wands are all orange, pentacles are all green, and so that I love the.
I really wanted to tie them into the elements.
Yes, and that's what I relate to.
A very available thing, consciously or subconsciously, when you're working with the deck.
And the narrative too, that you see them as a progression.
Yeah, and being able to immediately identify with, the color, the blue for the cups. I love it. Love it. It's one of the first things that I noticed when I was going through it, and I'm like, I love this. This is great. It's somehow easier to quickly, identify, and then also help you identify. So I like
because the cards aren't named; they're numbered. So you don't really know where you are.
And it's the visual, and I say that as an author, and I worked on the book. We all did. We worked on the book for this deck, but ultimately tarot is visual, and we really wanted to underline that. So I think we did.
And I also think together with Judika, who worked with Mary Greer and Rachel, and we worked with Teresa Reed. We had some consulting, but the thing about Pamela Coleman Smith that's so very interesting is that A.E. Waite gave her pretty specific instruction for the major cards. He was tied into the Golden Dawn. He had certain images. He had certain things that he wanted them to depict. The minors,
a classic tradition also.
Yes, very traditional. But the minors, up until Pamela Coleman Smith got her hands on it, were just pit cards. They were not scenes. They were not illustrated cards. So she brought that to that deck in a pure act of genius. And A.E. Waite really didn't give her much guidance on that. And I'll let Judika speak to that in a second.
No, you're doing it.
But what I wanted to add was that she worked as a set designer. And she had synesthesia.
Got this thing, right?
Absolutely. So I think she brought that sense of creating the set and the story to
Mhm.
every single
Mhm.
card. And I think that sensibility of energy and action and communicating the card, and a lot of it on her part was just pure clairvoyance and intuition about what the card was doing and saying. But one of the things Judika, I said I would get back to, Judika pretty much told me that, the keywords that Waite came up with for the miners were just taken from
Well,
a
I
fortune
learned
teller
that.
book.
I learned that from Mary Kay Greer
Yeah.
and Rachel Pollack. We had shown them after we did the work. We wanted to show it to various authorities and experts to, you want someone to proofread it and make sure you haven't really screwed up.
We didn't want to
And
mess it up.
and both of them and the keywords that Waite gave Pamela, he only gave her keywords for the minor arcana, and some of them were so archaic and misogynistic, and
Yeah.
I didn't, I sort of hesitated to, do we use them, do we update them? And but both Rachel and Mary recognized that the keywords had actually come from a fortune telling book. He had just cribbed them. Like, he had just cribbed the words from somebody else's book, because to
Was it
him,
like Etier's book or something?
I
Like,
don't they know which book, but I don't remember. Um, the minor cards were like fortune telling cards to him. And I mean, I call myself a fortune teller, and I think that's a great thing, but for him, that it was very dismissive. It
right.
was, the
Yeah, and for him to use those as his thing is, well, Waite did a lot of weird shit, though.
They did a lot of
To be
weird
fair.
shit, and
Yeah.
he was
And
very patronizing to Pamela Coleman Smith also.
Right.
And I think whatever she sort of did with these, she just would do, but actually they're so brilliant.
she was a genius
It was
in
a
how
genius.
she put the minor
Not
cards.
him. She was and I don't want to take credit away from him, because of course he's the one who, first conceived of these cards, and maybe if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have them. But
Well,
she
I-
was the genius.
I have 2 points because these things I may be confused on them, and I would love clarification. One, I've read, and I don't remember where I read it, but that the minors that Pamela Coleman Smith did, she took inspiration from the Solabusca deck.
Absolutely.
Okay, so but she came up with her own, but she sort of followed that.
So at the
inspired by
time that she was painting
Current.
this deck in the early 1900s, there was an exhibit of the artwork from the Solabusca at the National Gallery of London. And I don't know if it was all the cards or some of the cards, but she would have seen those.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I do think she drew some inspiration there as well.
And I think the concept of doing the minor cards as fully realized scenes.
Yes.
They are really, the minor cards are given as much respect as the major arcana. Anyway, for people who are not familiar, most decks before this, you might only get the 22 major arcana.
Mhm.
And I have decks that are, that are only the major arcana. Or like if it's the 8 of swords, you'd have 8 swords. If it's the 7 of swords, you'd have 7
You have
swords.
7 swords.
So it's like, if you've ever
Right.
tried to, I can read from playing cards, but I read from playing cards because I translate them to the minor arcana.
Right.
If you didn't have the minor arcana, what does that
Totally
mean? 5 swords or 4 swords or 8 swords? It was transformative. I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was gonna the next point I was gonna make was that because Waite was a part of the Golden Dawn, from my understanding, every person who got to a certain level in the Golden Dawn had to design their own deck. This is something that I've been told to me by people.
I don't
that
know.
this
I don't
was
know if
him.
that was
This was,
true back then. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that either.
But Pamela Coleman Smith was also a member.
I know. And
Working
so
on-
I think that what happened was that like I think that he was sort of the one who was smart enough to market it, right? Like to hire somebody to do it. And then
No, but they didn't really make money back then from it. I mean, the money, whatever. I mean, I saw something where she's like the most reproduced artist in the world right now. But even Waite didn't make a ton of money from it at that time.
so why
Tarot
take
was
it to a printer, right? Because it is that
writer as a printer. Well, to make a commercial tarot, but even in my childhood, there was no expectation of making money from
no,
tarot.
I mean him like
Yeah.
selling the deck, like him being like as in like, you know, why else do that unless because it didn't seem to me like Waite was trying to necessarily get the message out because that's not what Golden Dawn people really did.
No, and Tiffany, to your point of, I don't know whether it was something that, you know, was sort of expected that you were going to create your own deck, but he did set out to create what he called the rectified tarot. He had a definite plan for, I don't want to say fixing it, but
Well, he would have said that.
He definitely thought he was right. Like this is the right tarot is what he
Exactly.
on that
He
path.
would have thought that the metaphysics and the magic at the root of tarot had become lost. Because, you know, tarot, the first documented use of tarot is as a playing card game. He would have thought that, but the roots of it derive from, let's say, Hermeticism. And he wanted to bring that out to, you know, so we're going to have the high priestess instead of the popess.
Right.
Right.
And I appreciate that was the way that it went. I don't know what my point is after that.
I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting thought. I mean, if that's true, I wish we could see more of the decks.
That's what I think too, because, you know, because I've actually I met a guy one time who literally had he kept it in his little pocket in his overalls right here. And it was the one he designed and it was and it was all 22. And he was going through, you know, the, what the Boda deck is like the, Hebrew letters for each one. Right. And so high priestess is the camel and then explaining to me what that means. And I'm just literally like, just keep talking. This is amazing. Like, I want to soak all of this in.
You know, if you are interested, or people listening are interested in the sort of deeper meanings of symbolic meanings of Hebrew letters, like the camel is Gimel. We just published a book called Casting Lots, which is divination through lot casting, which is very similar in style to runes, but she takes it back. Elisheva Nesher, who is the author and who studied archaeology,
Say her name again, please.
Elisheva Nesher.
That's a beautiful name.
Isn't it?
Nesher. I believe she's an Ohio resident too. I should put you in touch with her. She brings it back to like a proto Hebrew script, you know, very simple, so you could scratch it onto, you know, a stone or a piece of terracotta, and talks about the meanings of them. Very similar to if you've read Diana Paxson's work with runes, how she brings, and Diana Paxson actually wrote the foreword to this book. So if you,
perfect,
you know, it's super interesting, especially if you want to compare it to the tarot also.
It's one of my favorite things to do. Draw those correlations.
Yeah.
You know, like build those bridges so you fully understand more of every little piece of it. That's the part that gets me going. I love it so much. Okay, we have a comment. We actually have a couple. Robert Abbott said a while ago, what is key as well as for folks with low vision is the way visions pop and are fresh, connecting on that intuitive level that we were talking about before with
agree.
The elements and stuff. And then Sonia, I can see echoes of Coleman's The Wave.
Yes.
And the blues and the line work. Bravo. Told you she
Thank
was an
you.
artist.
I know. Yeah.
And Michelle, I don't know how you missed it. I made so many posts, but you're welcome. Here I am. I love you. Sonia says, do you think he felt entitled to curate from fortune tellers to make his deck and call it correct? Or do you feel he wanted more to create a more homogenous experience or grouping of visuals for his community?
I mean, I think he felt pretty entitled, period. The bigger question, but I think that for A.E. Waite, the importance really was the major arcana. And he
didn't care what she did with the minors then. He was just like,
I mean, I think as long as she didn't do anything really unacceptable to him, it was all fine. I think he really wasn't that invested in the minor arcana, which
Yeah.
I find amazing, because those are some of my favorite cards.
I mean, and in the Golden Dawn, you have so much of the 22 paths of life, and the Kabbalah is tied into it, and the numbers and the planets, and this one has strength here and justice there, and there's a disagreement about what's between what. Yeah. So there was, if you look at what Mathers and McGregor and Wade and all those people were doing, it was all about the majors, and what symbolism fell where.
Yeah.
And I think all the guys back then were pretty entitled, but
well, it's so interesting that clearly Pamela Coleman Smith treated the minors with respect. And she would have been aware of the fortune-telling aspect. And Pamela Coleman Smith had a successful career before Wade. And one of the things she did, she was a professional storyteller. And there are photographs of her. And she dresses up. And she's got this very animated face. She looks like a lot of fun.
She was called Pixie.
Yeah. And, she worked in the theater. She worked with Bram Stoker.
Right.
She
What?
Yeah. She did the illustrations for The Lair of the White Worm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Everybody sort of, everybody. But it's often like if you read stuff about it, it seems like she's just some person A.E. Waite like picked up and didn't pay enough. But she, she was a force in her own right. She was very close friends with with William Butler Yeats and his brother. She was, she was a big deal also. And clearly, I think she treated fortune tellers with respect.
But I think that the keywords that Waite gave her were not probably sufficient to get her to where she ended up, which was really emphasizing that progression from the ace to the king as you go through the minors.
And there's a cohesiveness too.
There's a cohesiveness, and it's the same journey in every suit, but different because of the element. And the fact that she brought that to such awareness for people, I keep using the word brilliant, genius, blah, blah, blah. She was amazing, just amazing.
If you look at Lenormand cards, which are also fortune-telling cards, you have these very simple images. You've got, a fox and a snake, and, it's how you put them together. But especially the older cards, there's not a cohesiveness there. It's a language. Versus Pamela Coleman Smith, when you look at the cups or the swords, watching the progression, and there's a holisticness to them that's her creation. That was her vision.
Right. And I know that, the cups are blue and the swords are violet, and we wanted to
violet. Sorry,
keep them.
Here I am telling you what color they are.
Keep them themed that way, but I also really felt it was important for them not to be the same. we have shades of blue.
Oh
and
yeah,
intense
no,
blue.
not to say that they're like you know.
And that I
exactly.
felt was important to also enhancing what she was seeing about the progression as you go through the suits.
Mm-hmm. I'm really curious. I'm really curious where he got the list of words from.
Right.
So Etier is our first cartomancer, right? Like he's the guy who actually that we know of, that I know of for research so far, used the cards he actually coined the term cartomancy. So he's the one who wrote the first book, How to Tell Your Fortune with Cards or whatever it is. And so I'm so curious if that's the one, because I know it was before Wait, but there could have been somebody else. I don't know. But
We will make it our mission to get you that answer.
I'm so curious. Oh, thank you. Oh, wow. Right.
And by we, I mean Judika. She's the brain.
Wait, no, if you are a conduit to information, I have so many questions. I will get to you later at some point, because teaching, when I teach tarot, part of it is the history of it, and so I try to give as comprehensive as I can, so that people have an idea of how this all came about. But I have so many questions even further, because the more research you do.
Huh? You should have Mary K. Greer come on the show. Mary K. Greer is like such an authority on the history of tarot, and very specifically the writer Wade Smith,
and an authority on Pamela Coleman Smith.
Yes.
So I can ask her if it's true that Pamela Coleman worked on these in a farmhouse in England.
There's a really beautiful book that was, I think, published by U.S. Games, dedicated to Pamela Coleman Smith, and Mary K. Greer is among the authors. And it's just, for people who are not that familiar with her other work, it's all in there. It's gorgeous.
And it's a beautiful book.
Yeah. Big hardcover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah, I've read through it a little bit. And I think that's where I read the thing about the farmhouse thing. Because I was like, oh, wow, she just hung out with like suffragettes at the time and like worked on this art. And, every once in a while had to deal with some irritating messages from Wait telling her this or that. Of that. Just
he gave her a commission. She was really, so many people have become wealthy through this deck, but, not Pamela,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was one thing that I wish we could have done with this deck, was make that right.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, interesting. That's interesting.
At least
as far as like, I don't know, doing this isn't back up, Tiffany. Hold on. Nobody understands what you're saying. My brain goes faster than my mouth. That would be interesting, is to maybe do some sort of raffle where WitchLab gives away decks, but the money goes towards something that Pamela Coleman Smith would
young artists or art school, or it could be any number of things. But yeah,
I love that. So honoring her in that way. If any of my staff is listening right now, please remind me of this tomorrow so that we can get it going. Because I love doing charity work. It's only started recently, but because I've had the things of opportunities, but it's awesome to be able to give to things that you believe in. It's awesome.
If you Mary K. Greer has this very interesting blog, and at one point she had led a tour to Britain, and they went to find Pamela Coleman Smith's grave because she was buried in an unmarked grave. I don't know that they know the churchyard.
Okay.
But it's very interesting. So I'm sending you all to Mary K. Greer's blog.
I'm going. That sounds fantastic. And evidently, who would I talk to get an interview with her? Who's his publisher? Is it Weiser?
I can put you in touch with her.
Excellent. Okay. I have a question. So When you look at a new deck, what's the first cards you look for? What are you excited to see how they did?
The moon.
It's funny.
And the
We all
Nine of
have
Swords.
our favorite. We all have our favorite cards. What did you say, Judika? I cut you off.
The moon and the Nine of Swords.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're a Dark Knight kind of person.
I'm a swords person. 2 of Swords.
Really?
6 of Swords.
I love the Eight of Swords.
Yes.
That whole, the 8, the 9, the 10.
And the
whole
8 of
progression there.
Pentacles is a beautiful card.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
High Priestess. I'm really, if I could live inside of a card, I would probably live inside the Hermit.
That's a great question. Oh my God. Judika, what about you? Don't say the moon. That you can't. You don't want to live that life, lady.
No, I'm actually good with it. There's a moon tapestry behind me, although it's not right away. I'm a Cancer too, so I mean,
you're like, just let me live in this space.
I know the Chariot is the card associated with the sign Cancer. I know that intellectually, but Cancers are moon children, so I'm just claiming it. I don't know.
Water? Moon's water?
Maybe the Empress, maybe. If I was actually living inside a card, I like the Empress. The Nine of Pentacles.
I'm going to go with Nine of Pentacles. I'm going to go with Nine of Pentacles. That's the one I would want to live in. Yeah. And she's just in her garden with her little bird and a snail.
Yeah. And her beautiful clothing. And her private garden. It's so private. She doesn't have to deal with her neighbors. She can play her music as loud as she wants.
Yeah. I actually do live that life, actually. I've grown my yard up in a way that I can literally do anything in it and no one can see anything. even from the yard, even from the streets, you can't see my yard at all. It's weird.
That's nice.
It's nice.
That's my kind of living.
It's pretty great. I've made it so the front of my house is so completely overgrown that some people don't even see it. I'm working on it. Okay. I have more questions actually ready to go. Let's look at them, shall we? Let's see what I got here. So I wanted to tell you guys this. My daughter, my oldest, she's 20. She started learning cards back when I was reading cards at like flea markets and stuff, right? So she was like 6 or so and just hanging out with me, and I would like, I'd be teaching her stuff. So she came to me like 3 weeks ago. And she was like, I need a full-size deck. This little deck is killing me. And her boyfriend wanted to get a reading from her and stuff. And I was like, she's like, I'm really familiar with the Rider-Waite, but like, and I'm like, I have the deck for you. Because I had gotten sent the deck a little while ago, so I could, play with it and look at it and stuff. And I was like, I have this perfect deck for you. And so she took it. And she's had it, and she had to bring it back to me today because she actually put it in a new case and everything today. She put a new case, but she brought it back to me today so I could have it. But she loves it. She is because when I was showing it to her, I was like, well, it's reworked and it's new colors and stuff, and it's really gorgeous. And she was like, and there's Black people in it. This is amazing. Mom, this is great. Oh my God. I'm like, I know. It's fucking cool, right? So yeah, the diversity that you put into it as well.
It's not 1910 anymore.
Yeah. So it's beautiful. Yeah. And she was super excited, and she literally took it. But she did let me have it back just for this interview, but I have to give it back to her. But I think that that's something that, especially for younger people now, it's harder for them to get over that, like, well, it's just everything's whitewashed. They're like, no.
Yeah. And it's funny when you're working with the Rider-Waite, I mean, we pushed the envelope as far as we could. Obviously the artwork is of a time and of a continent and of a particular sensibility. There aren't any fat people, there aren't any disabled people, but where we could find diversity, we really tried to honor the diversity that was possible.
Well, we didn't change the lines of the art. Yeah, that was the thing. Well, ironically, if you know what Pamela Coleman Smith looks like, she would not have found herself in that deck either. She
Right?
was a small,
Interesting. Yeah.
she was a small, round woman, with, big
Turban.
hair. Yeah.
Jason wants to know if there's an alien deck. That he says I would relate to that one better, but better to that one.
I imagine.
There
Right?
definitely is. I bet it glows in the dark even.
That
Of
would be
course.
cool.
Definitely an alien deck. We could find you an alien deck.
If you can see it, maybe you should create it.
Jason is an artist. This little picture he did here, this is actually a painting he did.
There you go.
Very
He's-
nice.
So fantastic.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Memorizing that name.
So yeah, Jason Kincaid, he's amazing. He's actually my boyfriend. I can put you in touch with him.
Oh,
But yeah, no, I have art all over my room that is that he did, and it's like amazingly fantastic. I would definitely look at what he did. I have a Houdini thing, and yeah.
Isn't there a UFO deck?
What's that?
I
Is there a
don't know.
UFO deck?
Is
I don't know.
there?
Somebody who's watching,
I
do a little
think there
Google
is.
search.
I think there is, but I don't. I can't.
I have it in. Yeah, I connect you. Yeah, fantastic. But yeah, somebody who's watching, see if there's a UFO or an alien deck. Show us a link. Do some things. I use my watchers as research people. Find us something.
Or Betty and Barney is the lovers.
What's that?
Betty and Barney Hill is the lovers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. See, I'm designing the deck. I do this thing, you know.
Oh my God, Betty and Barney Hill. Okay, I know who you're talking about. The couple in the car,
Right?
Yeah.
right? Like the first abduction series.
Who were coming home from a delayed honeymoon.
Oh my God.
Which, speaking of,
Judika!
they were an interracial couple, and they had gone.
Yeah,
They had gone to Niagara Falls, and they'd gone up to Canada, and they got lost. And Barney had been afraid, and they had a dog, with them, and they had been afraid it could have turned ugly, and he wanted, and so they came home instead. And imagine if they had felt safe, they might never have had that abduction experience.
Right. Roswell is the chariot.
Wiser Field Guide to the Paranormal. I'm going to plug a book. Judith, it's attributed to Judith Joyce, but it's my book. I wrote it. And if you're out there listening and you are not familiar with Betty and Barney Hill, there's a lot about them in there.
What? Say the book again, Judika.
The Wiser Field Guide to the Paranormal.
Excellent.
We also just reissued. We do
Right.
several imprints at Red Whale. It's not just Wiser Books, but one of our imprints just reissued Captured by Betty.
Betty Hill's niece, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Super
Jason
interesting.
posted a link. There's the Tarot Lo Scarabero. Oh my God.
Okay.
Somebody say it.
Oh,
Really? Cool.
Yeah. So there we go.
I like Los Scarabero. I think they do
Yeah.
great stuff.
Agreed. I want to talk to you so much more about publishing, but I'm afraid it'll be boring for people. But I want to know about it because I feel like there's
Not true.
so much I don't know.
Tiffany, can I tell you, I did an event years ago at a store called Envision Crystal in Port Jefferson, New York. And I don't remember what we were supposed to talk about. I went out there and I had, this is what your class is going to be about.
Yeah.
Every question was about publishing. And at the end, we just talked about publishing. So I think people will not be bored.
Okay. All right. So I have no questions about publishing. I just want to know about it. Just tell me things. No. So what's your advice for somebody who has a book kicking, right? What is your advice? What's your like, do this first or go take
My
this,
first piece of advice is that you should check out get books that you like.
Mm-hmm.
and see who publishes them.
Yeah, I was told that when I first started,
The
well,
biggest
even
mistake that people make, people send us novels. We don't
we don't
publish
publish
novels.
novels.
It's just, you need to know
Look at your shelf.
who publishes what you like.
What
I think
kind of
a
stuff?
lot of people feel very, and I think this is a very mistaken thing. A lot of people feel like they need an agent before they can approach a publisher, and that's like so completely not
Not for
true.
metaphysical publishing,
Not
possibly for
metaphysical
fiction,
publishing.
possibly for
Just,
fiction, not for
we
metaphysical.
get stuff in over the transom and we look at it.
I had an agent who walked out on who my first agent left me when I had got a metaphysical contract. Because she was expecting a big blockbuster, and what we ended up with metaphysics was the Element books, the late lamented, the original Element books. She left me. But yes, what Kathryn said, that's exactly what I was told when I started writing. Look and see who publishes what you like. I will give I will give you some very practical for anybody out there. It is very much, you have to protect your work. I mean, there are people who can churn stuff out quickly, and it's not, and I sometimes wish I was one of those writers. They can just sort of, I know people in the best sense who are hack writers. Um, I'm going to write it this week. I'm going to, because you get paid. Give me 50,000 words on rainbows. Give me 20,000 words next week on, you know, something else. And that's a kind of a professional writing that is not personal. But if you are a personal writer and you have something that is dear to your heart, you have to protect it and you have to advocate for it. I have a file cabinet, and you have to be willing to take rejection and not make that too personal. Because even now, I mean, I've sold a bunch of books, but even now, the only even though I have a file cabinet full of mean rejection letters, they're unnecessary.
Yeah.
Because what I have learned from both being an author and from working for a publisher, there's really only one reason a publisher does not want to publish your work. It's because it does not think that it can market it well.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just have to accept that.
Right.
It's like it's a marriage. And if
So,
it's not happening, it's not happening.
once you find the publisher that you think is a match for what you are doing, basically what a publisher wants to see, if they don't know you and you're just sort of, find the name of the editor, address the editor directly,
If you
but
can.
if you can, but a publisher wants to see a proposal, an overview, a summary. My book is about this, 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 and this. Here's a sample table of contents. You don't have to send the whole manuscript. They want to see that you can write.
Yes.
But they also want to know who you think your book is for, and where you think your book fits in, and what else is out there that's sort of comparable to what you're doing. What are those books not doing that you're doing? So
Mm-hmm.
the first step is really, this is the idea, this is the proposal, this is why I think it's a good fit for you, this is why I think, and then it's just a matter of, the publisher considering it on the merits. We don't publish for the sake of just getting product out there. I think Wiser very particularly has a very strong ethic about not doing anything that will harm an author's reputation. I mean, we have some young authors who, want to put themselves out there, and every now and then you have to say, you know what, you're not ready to be put out there, and we're not going to let you do this because you're not ready.
Alicia Gallo, who is my friend and my counterpart at Llewellyn Books, Alicia and I, when we were at Pantheacon for years, we did a panel on pagan publishing and witchcraft publishing. And afterwards, and so this is what I learned from it. Afterwards, we would take 5-minute pitches, and we had hospitality suites. And so we'd run up from our panel, and we'd come back to the suite, and there'd be a line of people waiting for us. It was like a bakery. We're literally giving people numbers. And people would, and it was supposed to, and we had a line of people, and it was supposed to be a 5-minute pitch, because otherwise, it's a lot of people.
Right.
And when the first year, what's your
Auditions
the first
for
question is,
American
what's your book about? And
Right now,
people would take 20 minutes to get to what the book is about. And so what I learned because I wasn't guiding them well. And I do this now for proposals also. Tell me what your book is about first thing in 2 sentences or less. And then after that, you can tell me some other stuff.
Yeah, it's like an acting audition.
But it's boil it down to the essence.
If you don't have the casting director's attention in the first minute, you're done.
If it's a tarot book, tell me it's a tarot book.
Yeah.
It's literally, it is that simple.
It's going to change your life. Hold on, there's more. It's like, a lot of song and dance.
I was driving in my car and I had a thought, and then somebody said to me, and it's different than everything else, but I don't know what it's about. And I still get.
No, I wasn't looking up a recipe. Thanks. No, just give me the damn.
People get offended sometimes because
they
I
don't understand time management.
It's about.
That's the frustrating thing. It's like, get to it.
It's a skill. It's a skill. Auditioning. It's a skill.
Yes. And it's something that I think
how to do it.
If you're trying to, so let's say not only pitching this to a publisher, but also talking to someone, on the subway and just being like, what do you do? Oh, I do this. I write books about but.
I would also,
oh, that's interesting.
The witch's ladder, be silent, the final step. Maybe don't tell everybody every detail about what you're working on. Once you have put it on the internet, it takes on a life of its own. You can't really protect that in the same way.
And, back to your example of finding somebody on a train who's, what do you do? And blah, 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 blah. And you sort of find something. I mean, I found Cassandra Snow, who I'm sure you're familiar with, from her blog.
I'm not actually.
Oh,
who's Cassandra Snow? Tell us all. Tell everybody.
Cassandra Snow, when Little Red Tarot was still a thing. I'm not sure it's still a thing.
I don't know what it is.
It was a website.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, I think, but it was sort of I would call it
for a while,
like an online magazine, articles and
like Eclectic Tarot was.
Yeah. So Cassandra Snow was doing a blog, and the installments were all these blog articles about queering the tarot.
That's the name of one of her books.
And I saw it and I said, this is a great idea for a book. Let's flesh it out and make it a book, because it hadn't been done before. And, a lot of sometimes that's how we find people. They
found Little Einhorn that way. Little Book of Saturn.
I
was looking for astrologers who write, and I thought her writing was so beautiful.
We've done 3 books with Cassandra Snow, and she absolutely worth talking to. She's really quite amazing.
Your booking agents, Tiffany.
Best thing I ever did was hook up with publishers. Gia set this up, I had no, she was just like, you want to do this? I was like, but of course I want to do this. This sounds great. But yeah, this, I don't even look for shows anymore. I just do what comes to me at this point.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's awesome.
you're lucky.
It's awesome. I'm only doing like at the most 2 shows, but usually 1 show a month. And because I just want to do, I'm literally just cherry picking at this point. Like whatever sounds good to me. I'm trying to get Harold Roth right now.
Oh, you have to. Harold's great.
I
Harold's
know,
funny.
I love him. I've taken his classes, so I've gotten to see him talk, but I've never
Oh,
spoken to him.
oh,
I've reached out a few times, but
I'm going to text him tomorrow and tell him he has to do your show. He's working on a new book.
So sort of
He's going
Moses
to
is literally
say.
on my bedside table right now, and
Yeah.
But
Well,
So
this
the
is
Sword of Moses.
yeah,
yeah,
That's
Magic and Sort of
Fabulous book.
Yeah.
I know.
And Kathryn did the cover.
I get it. Hold on. I'm gonna show my people. I have a stack of books on my nightstand like you wouldn't believe. But these are the top 3. I'm going to show you the top 3 things I'm reading right now. 1, The Never-Ending Story, because
I love that.
because I need fiction in my life. If I don't have fiction, I'm going to die. But The Magic of the Sword of Moses is the second one on that list. And then this is a local personal friend of mine. He wrote Haunted Cemeteries of Ohio. And so
Oh,
I read like about like 1 cemetery a night. It's beautiful.
excellent.
One little haunting story. But yeah, I want to get Harold on if I can, because I just think he's so adorable and compelling.
Harold is also
smart,
brilliant.
Wisdom.
You know,
I know his listening to him speak makes me so happy. But yeah,
the geniuses who walk among us, Harold is one of them.
I mean, to take the Sword of Moses and make it that accessible. It's
Yeah.
like you pick up that book and it's like, oh,
reading the intro about
I
it.
get it
Just
now.
like his frustrating journey of figuring out like, well, that was a dead end, but like, oh no, here it is. This is it. And then giving us this.
And that's a gift. That
Yeah.
kind of information is truly a gift.
Yeah. So yeah, if you guys just want to help me fill out my calendar for the rest of the year.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah, I love it. It's makes it easier. Anyway, back to you guys. So my next question's stupid. Do you feel like you're going to be redoing any other decks? But I don't. That's probably not a thing.
I don't think
What
so.
What are you excited about right now? What project are you working on that you're super into?
Oh gosh, it's really kind of hard to
So Weiser has 2 seasons, a spring season and a fall season. And, we work on, we're working on, the staff is working, and we're a little publisher. It's a lean team. We're working on multiple seasons at a time. So the books that are publishing very soon, Mexican Sorcery, that's an amazing book. That's coming out soon. And Cindy Brannon, I think just entering Hecate's Cave. And books that are coming out. And I think Kathryn does a lot more, because I work maybe an 8 books a season-ish. So I can tell you what's coming out in the spring.
yeah. And then, Meg Jones Wall, Finding the Fool. She's 3 a.m. Tarot.
I don't know her either.
That book has gotten phenomenal advance reviews from like Publishers Weekly and Library Journal. And that's a very unique journey through the tarot.
Tell me how to find her.
We can.
I thought. No, did you say she had she's 3 a.m. tarot? Is that what you said?
3 a.m. Tarot is
What
her.
is that? Is that the name of
the website?
That's her website.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm writing it down.
I tend to right now be working on a lot of, because they're art heavy, a lot of packaged sets, book and deck packages. And I mean, first of all, we're incredibly picky about what qualifies as a wiser deck. We're not just doing decks for the sake of doing decks. We're
You
looking
do
for
very few decks, just a couple.
We do very few, but they have to be special. So we've got a couple of decks by Carrie Paris in the works at the moment. One of them is it's called the Siren Song, and she's working with Tony Savory, formerly Tony Poole.
The World
And
Divination Association.
They
What's
have
that?
combined Lenormand and Kipper into one set, and it's a really fascinating.
You need to break down all of that. Okay. So,
Well, these are different fortune telling
right.
decks.
So Lenormand, or
Is
however.
one. Yes,
How do
however you
how do
pronounce.
say
I
that?
know.
I
And
just
and Kipper is a German variant of, these types of decks were not very popular in the US until recently. They were very, very popular in continental Europe. Tony, she's from the World Divination Association and is one of the world's authorities on Kipper. And we have a Lenormand book from Erica Robinson coming out.
I'm writing down World Divination
Well,
Association just real quick.
yeah, the WDA, World Divination Association, cartomancers, so tarot and Lenormand and Kipper and oracle decks
Yes.
and all sorts of stuff.
More
And
information. Yes.
and Carrie's images are just so beautiful.
Oh, they are.
She did the relative tarot, and I think a lot of people know Carrie from the casting, the charm casting. She just does just very beautiful visual work.
Okay. I don't know.
And I mean, and I think it was a big project. We have Rachel Pollack's A Walk Through the Forest of Souls. There was an earlier edition of that book, but we're doing the rectified edition.
When was the earlier edition? Did it come out, or was it just a?
There was an earlier edition about 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
But
Okay.
it was an early edition about 20 years ago, but it has changed. It's very lavishly illustrated. I mean, Kathryn, 100 images? More. I mean, the book is gorgeous, and the illustrations are totally different from the illustrations, other than the Rider-Waite Smith and Rachel's Shining Tribe. There are different images, tarot images, and it's just Rachel Pollack is just a genius. It's tarot meets quantum physics and the Kabbalah and the I Ching and the history of tarot. And I mean, it's just,
and she's such a lovely writer. I mean,
yeah, beautiful
you
writer.
just flow. You walk
And it's so readable.
souls. You just flow through that book. It really is.
She helped me pull together a lot of threads. She really did. I've been teaching the tarot a while, but and crazily enough, I had not read her book, and so it was I don't know 4 or 5 years before I finally read it. I sat down and read it, and she filled in so many gaps for me. It was just like, this woman's amazing. Like, this is incredible. This is exactly what I was looking for.
So wait,
huh?
The endorsements are just starting to come in. A Walk Through the Forest of Souls will be is available for well, I mean, you'll have it, I think, by April or May.
Okay.
And the endorsements are just starting to come in, and people are saying it's some prominent people who know that it's her best tarot book yet, and coming from Rachel, 78 Degrees of Wisdom.
Right.
That's saying something.
Exactly. That's why I'm so excited.
Yeah.
April or May, huh?
Yeah, we just have this really just all these exciting books. It's too soon to tell you what Harold Roth is working on, but he's working on something very exciting. And
one of my favorites that we just published was Twist Your Fate by
Teresa Reed.
Oh, yes, the astrology book. Yes.
Where actually she takes astrology and tarot and really shows you as a person who works with clients how she uses both of those systems. she's sort of like, how does she put it? It's like your birth chart shows you the map and the tarot shows you the detours. So she has this,
Good.
right? But and then she goes through this whole, and at the end of the book, she has a case study of somebody taking their chart and a reading and doing a mashup and working with both of them together to resolve problems. And this tarot card relates to this in my chart, and she really, and she's such an accessible teacher. I mean, she's just really amazing. So that's one of my favorite recent books. I think it's a great book.
I got sent that book, and so I was reading it. And one of the things I thought was so cool was she mentioned that doing her chart from where she lived for the coming year sucked.
Yes.
So she went somewhere else to be somewhere else on her birthday.
The solar return. Yes.
Best year of her life. I don't know if she said that, but she was like, it went really well.
Yeah, I mean, she gives you those sorts of insights that people don't really think about, And
I was like, damn, that's really good. I can't remember if I actually went away for my birthday, but that year I really wanted to. I want to do all the work. I didn't actually do the work, but I think I actually went to a cabin. No, we went to a haunted hotel for my birthday. So we did go to another town, but I also didn't want to do the numbers and see that it wasn't going to be good. So I just went, but yeah, it's, but I love that part of it. I love the idea of being able to, it's deciphering all of the things, right? It's deciphering the astrology and then,
and then taking control.
Right.
And then doing something with the information. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Not just, woe is me, it's going to be a bad year, but
right.
Yeah, the whole point is to change things around, is to actually have control over it. The whole your hands on the thing is so perfect because it's like, do it. Yeah, I actually really like that book. As soon as I read about a third of it, I was like, yeah, order a bunch of these. We're gonna need these.
No, that's a great book.
It was the Golden Lamb. We stayed at the Golden Lamb, which is one of the most haunted hotels in Ohio, and it was fantastic. Scary things happened, even swinging lights and
cool.
They actually had ghosty stuff happen. It was crazy.
Yeah, where in Ohio is it?
Oh, dang it! Not Marietta. That's the other place. Jason's going to tell us in a second. Lebanon? I think it's Lebanon, Ohio. I think that's what it is. And also, here's Tony. Tony from the Buckley Museum says hello, everyone.
Hi,
so
Tony.
Good to see you all. Wonderful Tony Rotunda. Lebanon. Thank you, Christina. Exactly. Lebanon, Ohio. Yep. Cute little town. Super cute little town.
That sounds like a fun place.
It was. We tried it. So Jason and I, for our birthdays, we try to go to like haunted locations. And because our good friend knows all these things, we're just like, Bucky, where are we going? He's like, oh. He's like, check out this place. We've had amazing adventures. So Jean is the wonderful person who runs our book club. She's fantastic. She just got done with belly dancing class, so she's here now with us. That's why I always include an affirmation card at the end of tarot readings. It gives the querent something actionable to take away. Right. Now do this. Right. That's really good because usually, because at the end, sometimes you've been like blah, blah, blahing at them. And then they're like, what do I do?
And then you leave them hanging. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So in this case,
that's great.
I'm not going to do a full reading or anything, but Jean, I'm going to give you an actionable card right now. Just because tarot is fun. It's fun. Okay.
I'm listening to you shuffle, and I just want to mention that we are incredibly proud of the production of that deck.
This quality of the card. So nice.
Yeah, we put a lot. We're very picky about high quality material, so I was very pleased with that. The shuffle.
You said before Wiser doesn't do that much tarot. The ones you do, they're good. They're very good. Okay. Feels like one more time. Feels like one more time. All right, Jean.
Oh,
Here comes
Oh,
the
wow.
sun.
I love that card.
Oh,
Here
perfect.
comes the sun. And I say it's all right. Um, joy, pure joy. That's what you bring me, Jean. But also, go out and find some joy, friend. Go do some things. Go do something fun for you. Go do something that makes you feel like a kid. That's your action card. And you're welcome. I love you. You do so much. You're amazing. You do so good. She literally just does all of the book club stuff and I don't do anything. I just promote it. Sometimes I show up, but usually not. But she's had fun people show up. It's cool. Oh, I know. Bad job news. But yeah, go do something fun. Go do something that makes you feel good. Or just go stand under the sun. So, Kathryn, you in your bio that you sent said you're specifically not a reader.
No, I don't practice. Like I said, a lifelong student. I've learned from the best.
Mhm.
I will read for myself, but
You do read.
well,
What offering readings and being in reading is
yeah.
not necessarily the same thing. So, but
I make use of tarot in my life. I incorporate it absolutely into my life, as well as astrology. Those are sort of my two things.
Well, there's so many ways to incorporate tarot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as and I mean that's I think something for the I think that's something that the Rider Waite Smith really opened up, that it's just so resonant. You can use it for, meditation and visualization and inspiration, in addition to divination. And, so there are all valid and beneficial uses. So we all find what we need from it.
So we've talked about tarot as divination, and we've talked about Waite specifically using words from divination, even though they didn't necessarily want to use the cards that way. Can you talk a little bit about the way that Waite thought the cards should be used, if not for fortune telling?
Well, I think he would have distinguished between divination and fortune telling.
So divination, yes, was still.
Well, in this assumption that divination is
Did he use them for? So I guess
divination is as being a higher octave of fortune telling. I don't want to, you could get into classism and sexism and all sorts of, what is the difference between divination and fortune telling? I have a fondness for lowbrow art. I come from sort of a intellectual European family, and I love my lowbrow art and my rock and roll, and they always roll their eyes at me, and so I don't mind calling myself a fortune teller. It's provocative. You call yourself a fortune teller, people don't really know how to take it.
Mhm.
And there's, I think, a sense of it, fortune telling as as the province of women, and women who may have to actually make a living, um, as opposed to divination, which is a little bit more ceremonial. And for it's not how it's used now, but in Waite's
Okay.
time,
Okay.
Yeah, and
divination would have been
I think
sacred.
with his focus and the Golden Dawn's focus so much on the majors and the symbolism and the Kabbalah and how all of those systems were working together. I don't know how I would use the word divination, but it was really
It's a tool of enlightenment, I
a
think.
tool. It was for enlightenment. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes. It's for higher spiritual purposes and
Yes,
illumination, spiritual and metaphysical illumination, and
right.
to know the secrets and the mysteries. And that
Right.
was
And that's where the whole rectified idea comes in, where, he felt that he had that better path to getting to what
does
that
it really mean?
higher knowledge was,
Right. This is the way. This
way.
Well, it's a level of
strength first,
yeah,
then justice. He's very clear about that.
Well, even in my youth, there was such a distinction between ceremonial magic and high ritual magic versus folk magic. It's something I write about in Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells.
Yeah.
Folk magic was just, not anymore. But, in the 70s and maybe the 80s, even into probably the 90s, there's a dismissive quality. It's something, grandma did in the old country, but it's not necessarily worthy of respect.
So it's funny. I actually use divination and fortune telling in the same way.
Yeah. But it's 2022 now, almost 2023. So we're here.
Because thinking about them using it then as a way to sort of divine the future seems like they weren't really doing that. That Wait, anyway, was really using it for enlightenment, for ascending, for like getting the message, following the current upwards, which is like the fools of the world. So like, getting yourself to that upper thing, and not so much like figuring out what your day is going to be like. It was like, that's not what it's for. And I use divination in the same way as that. But
probably the best example of that is the Thoth tarot. That's totally.
So you say Thoth, okay? Judika, want to weigh in on pronunciation?
I say Thoth too.
Okay.
What do you say?
I said Thoth forever until I got yelled at.
They want you to call the Thoth.
And they will yell at you.
They will yell at you.
This is why I ask first.
What do they want you to call it? The Thoth?
Thoth. Yeah.
I was put in my place hard. And the thing is, it was Jason Miller and his roommate that taught me Thoth deck. Thoth deck is what I knew originally, and that came from him. And again, we were like in our early 20s and whatever, but like but yeah, then somebody was like, no, and I'm like, oh, all right, what? I don't care, we'll say it however you want to say it, but I'm always curious to see how that is. So okay, but I'm sorry, not to
divine, but if you think of the word divination, it comes from divine, up the deities.
It comes from the information's coming from your divining. Divine information.
It's the magician, as above, so below. Yes. And it's all very esoteric and elevated, versus fortune telling, which, which I also think is elevated, and which I also think is connected to the divine. But that's my personal, protest against that bias. But
it's like when you hear fortune telling, or I don't even know where this information comes from, but like you think about like the fortune telling is in like they're getting it from spirit, right? Like spirit is talking to them as opposed to divine information, I guess is how.
Well, a lot of fortune tellers will tell you that they know how to read the cards and that they just know how to read the cards. It's not necessarily coming from anywhere. It's all valid. They're all valid approaches. But I think especially when you're, the European decks like Lenormand or similar, I don't want to say it's not pretentious, because that implies that the other one is pretentious, but sometimes the other one is pretentious. But there is that I just, I know how to read the cards, and if I know how to read the cards, I will give you a good reading.
This card in this placement, these filters together make this story.
Yes. Whatever channeling.
There could be atheist card readers too. Like
absolutely.
And whatever channeling goes into that is just picking up on the energy of the person you're reading for, and they're having handled the deck. So
yeah.
And there's a lot of ways to read.
Even so, to my original question, as far as like them not using it for figuring out what's going to happen in your life tomorrow kind of thing, it's more about finding the path, finding the current, getting into how to be better so that you
Well,
can ascend in that it, to bring the
I mean,
divine energy into you so
I mean,
that
if
you
we're going back to a very pure form of, I mean, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was a secret society,
Mhm.
and they were mostly quite educated people. And if you think, I mean, Pamela Coleman Smith, not it was rare for a woman. She went to Pratt. Women didn't necessarily go to college or university in 1910 or earlier. Um, and it is a sacred art that should be used for sacred purposes and not for the mundane.
Mhm.
I used to work on a psychic hotline for about three and a half years, and with a friend who, the two of us worked on different hotlines. And I mean, sometimes you would get elevated, what is my life's purpose questions, but sometimes, what color should I dye my hair? I mean, somebody wants advice and they want to, so who else are you going to call? Like, your psychic has no agenda. It is no, we're on a phone call. I don't know what you look like. And if blonde or brunette, or should I go, which shade of red, I can just do a reading for you. It's very neutral,
Mhm.
you know, um, for the first 6 months, I had a pattern. Everybody wanted to know if their ex would come back.
Ugh.
Yeah, for real, which is very funny. My girlfriend, for the first 6 months, people were asking her if they were pregnant. And she was going, well, why don't you just get a pregnancy test? It's
Why are you calling me?
well, cheaper. It's cheaper to
Seems
get a
like a better
pregnancy test
way.
and more, probably more accurate and more, But no, I mean, people would call up, am I pregnant? In the knowledge that they could get a pregnancy test. So, I think A.E. Waite would not consider that a good use
Right.
of tarot.
Right.
Although I mean, I worked an overnight shift. I worked from 10 p.m. to theoretically till 1 a.m., but often it was so busy I would just stay on until the calls ended, which, could be hours. Uh, and, I made people feel better.
Yeah.
Or, we talked about things that people couldn't talk about, even if it was just, I want to get a tattoo. Should I do it? And for whatever reason, they didn't have friends or family members. And this is before social
You're
media.
neutral. You are venting
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with anything
Yes.
in their life.
Yes. You wake up and it's 3 a.m. and you really want to know if you should get that tattoo. So, you call.
You're really just looking for somebody that you can talk into supporting you into getting this tattoo.
Right. Somebody not your mom.
Somebody that's your mom,
Right. Not your mom.
not the significant other.
Right. Not anybody who is tied to it in any way, which is I think
Yeah.
that what I think that tarot readers fill that sort of they're
Yeah.
not a therapist, but like they fill that role of somebody I want to tell my stuff to. They might have something to come back
Well,
at me with, and you're
you
not
say
tied
that.
to anybody.
You say that, Tiffany, but I'm a crisis counselor too. I am a certified paraprofessional crisis counselor, and I worked in a clinic. And in the clinic, and it was a very well-trained clinic, but we had an agenda. We had, they were Freudians, and this is how you're supposed to do it, and you're supposed to do it
Got it.
this way, and this is what you're allowed to tell the clientele, and this is what you're not allowed to tell the clientele. If you find a good psychic, if you find a good fortune teller, not that there aren't terrible people out there, and there aren't charlatans and sharks, but if you find a good ethical person, I mean, if I read for you, I can say whatever I want. If I want to tell you about my experience that I had when I was 10 years old, because I think it will help you to hear it, I can do it. I couldn't do it over there. I was not allowed to share.
It's so much more personal.
Yeah.
Also, you can go tell anybody anything they just told you, which
Oh,
people don't realize.
no, I never do.
You're like, whoa.
Do you know, I never do. I never do.
Of course we don't.
No,
Of
we
course we
don't.
don't.
And you
But
know, no one
like,
would believe us anyway.
but almost like that
It's
there's
true.
like, you're telling me shit you probably shouldn't be telling
No,
me.
I
There's no
am.
protection
It
here.
is my best skill is my best skill is my ability to keep my mouth shut.
Jean says, the person who is invested in your welfare without being biased by personally knowing you. Thank you for
Exactly.
putting that into words for me, Jean. That's exactly what I was
Yes.
talking about.
Or,
I think it's
or not invested in your welfare, as the case may be, by being personally invested. Everybody who looks like your friend isn't your friend.
It's so true. It's
Yeah,
so true.
totally.
It's so true. It's
Yeah.
scary, but but going to somebody who is completely not connected in any way
Yeah.
makes you it makes people loosen up. It when I'm alone in a room with a person who I'm doing a reading for, they let go. They let
Yeah.
go, and they and sometimes they come to realizations on their own, just like in therapy where I had nothing to do with it. They just talk
Right.
their way through it. They're like, oh. And I'm like, oh, that's this right here. That's actually what this card means. And then but yeah, it's
I think that what you said, I think for people who get readings, if you don't feel you can do that, I mean, that what you just described is really the perfect example of a divination situation. That the person can come in and speak freely.
the divination being the information that they have figured out in that spot, right?
Yeah, but that's part of the process. Maybe they
Which
wouldn't
is
have figured it
beautiful.
out
I
without.
think it's
Yeah.
so when
Yeah.
whenever I teach, so I I break up the classes. I do a minors and a majors, and each class is a 2-night affair. So like it's roughly 6 hours total for each half, right? Not
Sure.
half, but each thing. But during each of those classes, each person in that class at one point, as I'm going through the stuff, will be like, oh, I'm like, oh, that's where you're stuck. That's your moment. And they're like, damn it. That's actually what I'm doing right now. And so each person has like this moment where they're like, oh, I identify with the card, the lesson, what you
A
said,
eureka moment. Yeah.
yeah. So they have, even though I'm not giving them a reading, we're just going through the cards. But at
Yeah.
some point they'll figure out where they are on that path, or at least, having that same issue again or whatever. But like that realization is fantastic because you'll just hear it and be like, like, oh, well, oh.
Well, as you know, you asked us before, what card would you like to live in? So it's the card you would like to live in versus the card maybe you are living in
Stuck in,
currently.
right?
Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's the card they're
Yeah.
living in. That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then every time they're like, oh, yep, or damn it is what I hear. Because I'll just, I'll give like some phrase about the card, and then the realization that shit, that's my card, which I think is adorable and wonderful.
But that's
and
Pamela Coleman Smith. You know, even other decks now, Pamela Coleman Smith, beyond the major arcana, the fact that we can do that, I think Pamela Coleman Smith laid she was the one who laid the seeds for that. All the other wonderful decks that are in the Rider-Waite Smith style, or not, or decks that are totally different, but that
but
also
still
illustrate
following that same
Right.
current, that same story.
Yeah.
One of my absolute favorite things is to take a deck that is non-traditional and line it up and think about it. What are the underlying, what are the words that I would normally use for this deck, and how can I make these two things reconcile? And what other word then comes from that? Because then that now defines both of those cards beautifully. It is one of my most favorite exercises.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I do.
It's when we would teach the classes, people would put down because everybody brings a different deck. You put your card down in front of you and to walk around. And if someone's like, I'm confused, I'm like, oh, sweet. Let's, as a group, think about this and talk about this and figure out how this actually can work together. And expanding the definition, the feeling, the current of each card is one of my favorite things to do.
Right. And the fact that, she set up the idea of, the miners as a landscape. And then I look at, like, we're right now publishing the Rosebud Tarot. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Not
Awesome deck. But that's a deck with what I would call a Rider-Waite-Smith structure, if you know what I mean, what you were talking about.
Yes.
But the landscape is completely reimagined.
Mm-hmm.
The cards have different names. The Hierophant is the professor. The Empress is the life giver.
Hold on. The Hierophant is the professor. Okay. What was the next one?
So the majors have different names.
I love
some of them. They don't all have different names, but a lot of them have been renamed and, sort of reimagined. But you can still see
where it came from.
And even though the miners might be, feathers instead of, you know what I mean? Even if they change the element descriptor, it's still following the landscape.
It's following, it's
established.
Yeah. The common thread.
Yes.
Beneath them. That is what I'm always looking for, because every time I find one, it makes my understanding of that card so much bigger.
And, when we get tarot decks in for consideration, I mean, that's kind of the first thing I look for in terms of validity, what the hell are you doing with this? That has nothing to do with anything, I
have so many questions for so many decks. I'm like, why this? Why? What? Because and I'm not saying it's wrong. I just want to know how they got there.
Yeah.
Because I love all the variations. I think they all help me understand more. But sometimes I'm like, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
But it resonates with someone.
Right. And that's why I want to go to the author and be like, why?
Yeah.
The worst answer ever is, I don't know. I don't know anything about the tarot. I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, check out the Rosebud. I think you'll really like it.
I do know it, actually. I can picture it. I think I have seen it.
Yeah.
Because how long has it been out for? Do you know?
They published it. Amanda Stillwell and Diana Rose Harper published it independently through Kickstarter. I don't know what their initial print run was, but we saw it and we're like, this needs a home with us. Let us do this. And so we're really pleased to add that to the list of unique and unusual and beautiful decks that we're producing.
So I've kept you guys on for almost 2 hours, but I have one more question. That what are some of your favorite decks to work with?
The Rider-Waite-Smith is it's my old standby. I use quite a few decks, but that is, for example, when I was working on a psychic hotline, because in my experience, I have occasionally, I don't read for a lot of people anymore, but there are people who I've read for a very long time.
Oh my God. I think I asked you the same question when Jean was actually posting this. What are some of your memorable favorites?
And I find the Rider-Waite-Smith is just, you can always get a reading from it. Like if somebody calls me and they have an emergency and they want me to read for them in 10 minutes, I can literally pull that deck out and always do a good reading. Always. And there's that trust. So that is, but
second nature.
I really love the Halloween tarot with the art by Kipling West. I love that deck so much. It's just also in the Rider-Waite-Smith style. I love that. I have a Klimt deck, with the gold. Yeah. That's just beautiful. I have many decks, and I perhaps have too many. Rachel Pollack's Raziel deck that she did with Robert Place.
Wait a minute.
beautiful deck.
What?
Which is,
Rachel Pollack did a deck with Robert Place?
Yeah,
yeah,
How
it's
do
only
I not know these things?
it's a
because it was
beautiful
done by
deck.
Kickstarter. It's a beautiful deck. Robert Place did the art,
He's one of my
and
favorites.
it's only the 22 major arcana, and
Tell me
it's
what it's
just
called
gorgeous.
again.
Raziel, Raziel.
RACI.
And Lon Milo Duquette did a deck,
Yeah,
which is a beautiful, beautiful
yeah,
deck.
yeah.
But, there are all these like hidden gems.
I didn't know Lon did a deck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ceremonial magic tarot, I think is what it's called.
All right, I need to put the notes. Robert Place, because otherwise I'll be like, I don't know.
I love Robert Place's art. I
Oh
love
my
Robert
God.
Place's art. So I have a number of his decks with the tarot decks, and also he has there's I think a Lenormand, or they're different, whatever.
Mhm.
He sells them directly, and I just think his artwork is amazing.
I've carried them in the store, and I have to get them from him directly. And the
Yes,
Alchemical deck is one of my favorites.
yes.
The
He has
book,
the Saint deck also. Do you know
Mhm.
that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His
That one's
Alchemical
beautiful.
Tarot book is the like it also it has this really long title. It's like Neoplatonism and blah 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 blah. But it is a beautiful book. It
It's a
is
beautiful book.
incredibly informative. Yeah, I'm a huge fan, Robert Place. Anyway, okay, so go on. Decks that you like. Sorry.
Well, Kathryn is, Weiser, Kathryn is the one who really works on the decks.
So, I mean, of course, I'm going to like the ones that we done. Shaheen Moreau,
Yeah, that's
the
beautiful.
Uncommon Tarot, is a beautiful
Yeah.
deck.
Well, the Lunar Nomad also is
The
beautiful.
Lunar Nomad is an oracle, a Lenormand-based
Yeah.
oracle. One of the very first decks we did is the Alchemical Visions Tarot.
Yes, I know it.
It's really kind of a mind-blowing trip through
Mhm.
alchemy, and absolutely loved working on that. I mean, at the time, we sort of made the cards oversized because there was so much
They are big.
detail in them, but it makes them kind of unworkable. But I'm not sure they should be workable. I think they're
No.
more of a visual path,
Mhm.
You just
I don't
have
know.
to shuffle a different way.
Yeah, so I
I can
really,
shuffle any cards. I can make it happen.
I do really like that deck.
Except for round decks. Round decks are the hardest.
Oh, like the mother piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, I can't. I'm usually just like okay, I can't. There's no bridging.
Do you know what day is today? Is today the 14th? Yeah, it's still the
It
14th,
is.
still the 15th. Tomorrow will be the anniversary. I had an accident. I almost lost the top of a finger. No, it was very bad. I got my jaw was
Catherine's out.
I feel that when people say things like that.
my finger got caught in the slamming door. Long story,
Oh.
but it was my finger was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Stop talking.
But I ended up. I had to go to. I went to St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, and I was weeping and weeping, but I wasn't weeping from the pain. I was weeping because I had finally become a good shuffler, and I thought I was never for real.
You couldn't shuffle.
And I thought, oh my God, I thought, well, I'm going to have to get one of those shuffling machines like they have in Las Vegas, but they don't really fit tarot decks. So I'm going to have to learn how to read playing cards. And I was
That's so
just
funny.
I know.
Oh my God. I learned how
But
to
it's still
shuffle.
here. It's fine.
I
They're
learned
really,
how to shuffle cards
yeah.
while sitting with my uncle when I was like 8. He was babysitting me. We were watching Dukes of Hazzard, and they were playing cards, and
Yeah.
he would shuffle, and I'm like, how do you do that? Can you show me? How can you? And I I learned, and I just kept
It
fucking
took me a
playing.
long time.
I love shuffling
Yeah, me
cards.
too.
The satisfying bridge sound is
Oh,
the
boy.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people are like, oh, you can't shuffle cards. I'm like, I can shuffle. Like it's because people, if they don't shuffle well, their decks will get bowed. I'm like, you got to know how to bridge, friend.
Well,
You
part of,
even that out.
at that time, way before, Zoom and
I am the
virtual
shuffle queen.
reading and the phone. You are the shuffle queen. That's so nice. There is, when you're reading for people in person, there is a visual aspect of it. So, look, I mean, I don't have nail polish on now, but when I read in person, I always would have nail polish, and you want to shuffle well, and it's that whole, it's part of the
Yes.
presentation, part of
It
the
is.
ritual.
It's your comfort with the cards. You're
Yeah,
showing them your comfort with the cards.
yeah, yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, I'm going to tell you my favorite decks.
Okay.
I really love the Rider-Waite has been my staple since I
Yeah.
started reading cards when I was 18-ish. So always that. And it's what I teach from also because it's what I learned from. But man, Deviant Moon really struck me when it came out. And it is one of the few decks that I actually use in my personal practice. And it's always reliable and dark. And that's one of the hardest ones to draw correlations sometimes between the Rider-Waite that I know so well and what they're representing. And to use them together to figure out like what's the undercurrent, what's the factor that makes sense for everything, that usually helps me a lot. So I'm a huge fan of that deck because it's so hard for me to use, but I like the challenge.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but it but it still works for me. Like some decks are so hard, I'm like, no thanks, I'm good.
Well, different decks for different purposes.
Always, yeah. Oh, yeah, for different purposes for sure.
Yeah. So there are decks that I appreciate for the art. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't read from them.
Right.
Right. Specifically for art decks, that's a whole other category. Like stuff that I just want to look at all the time. Yeah. I have too many. I'm as I'm sure you both are deck collectors. I have way too many decks to even think about it.
There's no such thing.
We'll go on a whole tour one day. Look at my cabinet of decks.
There's no such thing as too many. I don't think
I agree with that. You know what?
Yeah.
I agree with you. I retract that statement. I don't have too many. I have just enough and not enough.
Yeah.
I have not enough
You know,
decks.
it's been out for a while, but I've always really liked the Urban Tarot by Robin Scott.
Okay. I don't think I know that one. Urban Tarot. You say tarot, by the way. Interesting.
What do you say?
I say tarot.
I say tarot too. I actually had this conversation with Gia. I mean, I think readers say tarot, but a lot of publishers tend to say tarot, or people who, or people who are writing about it say tarot. I had to get used to that because I always say tarot, and it's
I default to tarot.
When what's the Faces song? Stay with me, come up and read my tarot cards. So
It's documented somewhere. It says tarot.
Well, it's the British version versus the French.
I was going to say I married into a French family, so I have that excuse.
Yeah. No, a lot of people do. I mean, it was new for me when I went to work.
And you should be using the Marseille deck, yes?
Which I actually really love. I mean, I was going to say a lot of the decks that I love are the old.
Marseille decks are gorgeous. And I took a class, so Andrew.
And all the versions of them.
Right.
You go back to the first one in 17 whatever, Jean Dodal.
There's a really lovely book.
Visconti Sforza is one of the
yeah, that one's pretty awesome.
Yep. And they're like the tall cards, right?
Yeah, long and lean.
Yeah. But yeah, I think they're fascinating. And there's something so mysterious yet foundationally about them because they're so old that I feel like they predate the using the cards in the way that we use them now.
Exactly.
Sure. Yes.
And so this is what I was trying to get out before. The Hermit's lamp in Canada is owned by a man named Andrew, who wrote, he actually designed a tarot deck. Oh my God, I can't remember his name. But anyway, he put on a class. He put on an online class that was like 4 different tarot teachers from around the world, specifically Marseille deck. And it was amazing. It was intensive. It was like every night for like 4 days in a row. And it was a couple hours each night. And you just sat and listened to somebody who specialized in reading Marseille decks. And it was gorgeous. It was like all of the different ways that they do it, the way they look at it, how they, because it's not like you pull 3 cards and normally what we think past, present, future, right? Or something close to that, or, you know,
Sure.
obvious, now, hidden type stuff, whatever. But they look at it as an entire tapestry. All 3 cards are actually part of a scene that where like sometimes the main figure in this one morphs into the main
exactly.
figure, morphs.
It's
And then the
mind-blowing.
morph. And it was fantastic. It opened my eyes in a whole way. Yeah. Yeah. Marseille decks. They're amazing.
That's one of the cool things, getting back to Rachel's walk through the Forest of Souls. I mean, she really gets into some of these older decks and really picks apart, you know, like I remember when I was working on it, just how, you know, she talks about the emperor used to have his legs bent and it created the numeral 4, you know, and at some point that disappeared, you know, and I'm just fascinated with that kind of thing.
Yes, me too. Yeah, delving into these little things and the changes and why and what that means.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Boda deck, the Emperor is sitting on the goddamn cube of space, which I never want to talk about again because it's so confusing. Like,
that was my first deck.
Huh?
That's my first deck.
I know.
Yeah.
And I know you know what I'm talking about because they talk about that goddamn cube of space.
Although, you know, I love that.
At one point, it's Metatron's cube. I'm like, ah!
I love that deck, but I very rarely read from it.
I think it's a learning tool. To get you into further understanding.
I like to look at it. I like to.
I mean, you're supposed to buy it and then color it yourself.
Right. And that's the journey.
That's the journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight.
Been incredibly
wonderful.
And
it was fun.
A wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Oh,
thank you.
Everybody, have a wonderful evening. What? I don't want to cut anybody off.
Nope.
I tend to do that a lot. I talk over. I'm sorry.
Me
But
too.
you guys are wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Have a great holiday.
Yes.
All your holidays.
Holiday. Don't stress. It doesn't matter if you don't get the perfect shit. Just be there for people.
Yeah.
Love you all.